Paris, France. 1830. A tailor named Barthélemy Thimonnier had spent years building a machine. It could sew cloth automatically. No hands required. He set up 80 of them in a factory. He had a government contract. He was making army uniforms. Then a mob of French tailors broke in. They smashed every machine. They nearly killed him. They were terrified. If a machine could sew, they had no jobs. Thimonnier rebuilt. The mob came back. They smashed the machines again. He died in poverty. The machine he invented would go on to change the clothing of the entire human race. But first, it had to survive. And the people trying to stop it were not the only problem. There was also the question of who actually invented it. That fight is still not completely settled. Before the sewing machine, all clothing was made by hand. Every shirt, every pair of trousers, every military uniform, every sail on every ship. Sewn by a human being, stitch by stitch, with a needle and thread. A skilled seamstress could sew about 35 stitches per minute. A good day's work produced a small amount of fabric. A shirt took hours. A coat took days. This meant clothing was expensive. A working-class family in 1800 might own 2 or 3 sets of clothes. That was it. Clothes were repaired, not replaced. They were passed down through families. The idea of buying a new shirt on a whim was unthinkable. The clothing industry employed enormous numbers of people. Mostly women. Mostly working from home. Paid by the piece. Working from dawn until they couldn't see. Their lives depended on the needle. When rumors of a sewing machine started spreading, they were terrified. Thimonnier's factory in Paris was not the only target. Wherever a machine appeared, workers tried to stop it. They were not wrong to be afraid. Barthélemy Thimonnier was a French tailor. He built his first wooden sewing machine in 1830. It used a hooked needle. It made a chain stitch. It worked. The mob destroyed his factory in 1831. He rebuilt. They came back in 1848. He fled to England. He died there in 1857, with almost nothing. Meanwhile, in America, 2 men were racing each other. Elias Howe was born in 1819 in Massachusetts. He was a machinist. He worked in a cotton factory. He was poor and often sick. In 1844, Howe had an idea. He had watched his wife sewing by hand for hours. He knew there had to be a faster way. He spent 2 years building a machine. It used a needle with the eye at the point, not the top. It used 2 threads. It made a lock stitch. The stitch was stronger. It would not unravel. In September 1846, Elias Howe received United States patent number 4750. Nobody bought it. Howe tried to sell in England. It failed. He came home broke. His wife died while he was away. He pawned his machine to pay for the funeral. Then he walked back into a world where his invention was everywhere. Other manufacturers had copied his design. They were selling sewing machines all over America. Making fortunes. Paying him nothing. The most successful of all was Isaac Singer. Singer was not an inventor. He was an actor, a showman, and a ruthless businessman. He had taken Howe's basic design, made it easier to use, and started selling aggressively. He added a presser foot. He added a foot pedal. He designed the machine so any woman could operate it at home. He offered payment plans. The first installment plan in American consumer history. Singer was selling machines faster than anyone. And paying Howe nothing. In 1854, Howe sued Singer for patent infringement. Howe won. Singer was forced to pay royalties on every machine sold. Howe earned around $5 million before his patent expired in 1867. That is roughly $150 million today. He died 1 week after his patent expired. The sewing machine did what every mob and angry tailor had feared. It destroyed handmade clothing as an industry. A sewing machine could produce 9 times more stitches per minute than a human hand. Factories replaced home workers. Speed replaced skill. Prices collapsed. For the first time in history, ordinary people could afford more than a few sets of clothes. By 1900, Singer alone controlled 80% of global sewing machine sales. On March 25, 1911, a fire broke out at the Triangle Shirtwaist Company in New York. The building had 3 floors of garment workers. 146 people died. Most of them were young women. The doors had been locked to prevent theft. The fire escapes collapsed. The disaster changed labor law in America forever. The sewing machine also produced something nobody had predicted. It created the sewing machine combination of 1856. Howe, Singer, Wheeler, and Grover pooled their patents. Shared them. Collected royalties together. It was the first patent pool in American history. The model was later used for DVDs, Bluetooth, and 5G technology. The legal structure that governs modern technology licensing was invented to sell sewing machines. Fast forward to today. The average American buys 65 items of clothing per year. In 1930, it was 9. The sewing machine made clothing so cheap that humans now buy more of it than they can use, store, or discard responsibly. Fast fashion is one of the largest sources of industrial waste on Earth. It traces directly back to Barthélemy Thimonniere's wooden machine in Paris. The mob that burned his factory was trying to stop something. They were right that it would change everything. They were wrong that stopping it was possible. Everything around you was made before you. Some of it changed the world in ways nobody wanted. Most of it started as someone just trying to make one thing faster. Before the sewing machine changed what you wear, there was something that changed where you sleep. Something so ordinary you have never once wondered who invented it. Something that took 5,000 years to get right. That story is next.